Hello and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I want to answer a common question or just a problem that I have seen with some of my clients with regards to rebuilding savings. So a few of my clients have said to me that, you know, during the pandemic, it was great because I was able to save a lot of money. Maybe you were able to save 5K or 10K or even 1K, and that was absolutely amazing. However, fast forward a few years and you may realize that maybe you're just not able to save as much as before, or you may even realize that you've actually had to dip back into those savings, and so the savings that you did finally have, that 5 or 10K, has basically dwindled. And so I want to share my thoughts on what to do if you are in that situation where you have saved money before but now something else has happened and you're just not able to save as much. And I just want to apologize in advance because the sun keeps going in and out, but I'm pretty much recording this without my usual lights. I'm just using the daylight, so please bear with me. So I'm gonna be honest in this video. This is very much unfiltered Veronia right now, and I will say that I think the reason why people are a bit confused, like they were able to save so much during the pandemic and now they're not. I think one of the biggest reasons why people have that disconnect is mainly because they thought that saving money equaled no spending. And what I mean by this is during the pandemic, we were at home. We couldn't spend money, even if you wanted to. The most you could spend was potentially online. And so when it came to the pandemic, many people were able to save money simply because they weren't spending. But I would argue that when it actually comes to saving money is a skill. And the skill is being able to save money whilst also spending money too. And so if you were just able to save money but you weren't spending, you may not have necessarily learnt the skill of truly being able to save money. And so for me, one of the biggest questions that I would be asking myself if you're someone who has struggled to rebuild savings, I would be asking, were you able to save money because you weren't spending? But did you know that when it comes to saving money, you can still do that while spending money? And I think people don't realize that. They may think that, oh, the only reason why I was able to save money is simply because I wasn't able to spend. And so you want to start being able to learn how to actually start saving that money while still being able to spend money on your groceries, spend money on different experiences, and be able to also pay your bills. I would argue and say that that is the true art of saving money, because you are able to master both. You are able to spend that money, but you're also able to save that money and keep those savings at the same time. So now that we've got that out of the way, I want to share some things that you can start doing to actually rebuild your savings if this is something that you want to do. If you want to try and save, you know, for your first 1K or 5K or even 10K, these are some of the things that I think you could do. And the first thing I would say is actually ask yourself, how did you save before? So going back to the idea of having the skill of saving, what I would be asking you is, okay, well, how did you save before? And not just to say, well, I didn't spend the money, so I just saved it, but was there anything that you did to save that money? Did you open a separate savings account so you could start putting money in there? Did you maybe create a savings challenge, and you may have just even created a game out of it to figure out how much you can save? Whatever you did, I think sometimes we don't believe that we can rebuild our savings despite not realizing that we actually did it in the past. And so what you want to ask yourself is, if I've saved money before, clearly I can do that again. And I want to ask myself, how did I do it before, so that I can just repeat that process and keep doing it. And I do want to reiterate on the idea of saving being a skill, because this is something that you can continuously learn. One of the things that I find is that many people just don't believe that they can rebuild their savings simply because their circumstances have changed. So maybe you've actually changed your job and you're now earning less money, or maybe things around you have become a lot more expensive. And I definitely have been in both of those scenarios. But one of the things that I realized is that although my circumstances can change, I can still continue to develop my skill, even if there are different circumstances. And so what I realized is that I could still learn how to save, even if it may not be as much because of these different circumstances. The skill of saving could still be developed. And what I mean is that I can still save money even if my circumstances change. So even if your income drops or things are much more expensive, ask yourself, do you still have the skill of learning how to save regardless? So that even if any of your other circumstances change, that's okay, because you can still learn to save money. I've had my income fluctuate where I've had less money, but I've still been able to save. I've also still been able to save despite things becoming more expensive. And I'm not saying that, oh, you're going to be able to save as much as you were saving before, because if your circumstances have changed, then your circumstances have changed. But what I am saying is, don't let that belief stop you from thinking that you still can't save. Allow yourself to think, okay, yes, my circumstances have changed. Yes, I'm making less money. Yes, things are more expensive. But how can I be a bit more creative with the way that I'm saving? Is there something else that I can do to help me still save money despite everything else going on? The other thing I would say is, if you're someone who's maybe discouraged because, you know, you were able to save quite a lot during the pandemic and now you're just not able to save as much, one of the things that you can do is still work out how much you're still able to save, even if it's not as much as before. So let's say that you were able to save 10K in less than 4 months because you were at home and it was during the pandemic and you couldn't really spend money. Well, yes, you may not be able to save that 10K in 4 months right now, but could you save 5K? Could you save 10K in 8 months or 12 months instead? You can still work towards some of those money goals that you have. But I think one of the problems that we have is that because we're not able to do as much as before, or we're not able to save as much as before, we almost give up and then don't do anything. But I would argue that saving 5K is better than saving 0. Saving 1K is better than saving 0. So how can you just think, okay, I may not be able to save as much as I was before, but how much can I save? What can I do instead? And how can I still work towards some of the goals that I have? How can I still work towards saving up for that house deposit? How can I still work towards saving up for that emergency fund or that car or that wedding? Whatever it is, ask yourself, are there things that I can still do today to help me move towards that goal, even if it's not as much as before? And then the other thing that I would say when it comes to just trying to rebuild your savings is that you want to start thinking about your new spending habits. So if I go back to my first point, when it came to the pandemic, obviously many of us were able to save simply because we just didn't spend money. We didn't have any money to spend. But now that things have changed and things have opened up and we're going back to, you know, enjoying our experiences and spending money, you want to start thinking about, okay, well, what are my new spending habits? Because clearly they are different than before. So you want to ask yourself and figure out, how are you actually spending money? How is it different this time? Because when you start to have an idea on what your spending habits are like, you can also have a good idea on how much you're then able to save as well. So as an example, I had a client who has now been going back to the office, and so when she would go to the office, she would actually like going to different coffee shops because, you know, that made her day, especially because she was having to go to the office. But one of the things that I realized is that she wasn't actually accounting for that new spending, and so whenever she would get to the end of the month, she would overspend and she would be confused and think, okay, like, what's going on? Why am I not able to save as much? And I said it's simply because you are not taking your new spending habits into account when you're thinking about your budget, when you're thinking about planning out your finances. And so what we decided to do is we decided to put into her spending plan that every single time that she went to the office, she would go to the coffee shop. She would go to Starbucks or she would go to Costa Coffee, whatever it is, she would actually get a coffee. And the reason why this was actually really helpful is because now that she had an idea of her new spending habits, she could plan for that and she could put in her budget that she's going to spend money going to the coffee shop. And so since she already knew how much she would be spending, it meant she then wouldn't have to keep dipping back into those savings, and then she could actually focus on rebuilding those savings without thinking about her overspending, because she was no longer overspending since she was actually planning for that spending. And so when you start thinking about your own spending habits and how that's changed, that can have a really good impact on your savings, because number one, you wouldn't have to dip back into your savings because you will already know what you're spending money on, but also it means that you can now start focusing on rebuilding your savings separately without worrying about whether you're going to overspend. So I would say these are kind of my thoughts when it comes to rebuilding savings, and I hope this was helpful, especially if you are someone who had saved quite a lot of money during the pandemic, but you've realized you just haven't been able to save as much now, or you've even had to dip into those savings. I'm hoping this will give you some encouragement to keep doing it, keep working on saving, keep rebuilding those savings, because it's definitely possible. And if you do want further support when it comes to actually rebuilding your savings, maybe you're trying to save up for your first 1K, 5K, or even 10K, and you need a bit more support, that's exactly what I do in one-on-one money coaching. So if you do want to find out more about how I can help you, definitely make sure you book a call to find out more. So I'll link more information up here for you and in the description below. But yeah, I do hope that was helpful, and if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and you can also subscribe to my channel if you would like to learn more about money content. I have so many videos on this channel. But thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you in another video next week. Bye.